Update. My brother's girlfriend made an altar of my child. Original post. I'm 34 male, wife is 32 female, brother is 27 male, and brother's girlfriend is 26 female. I'm looking for advice here because this is completely over my head, and my initial reaction to this is probably way off. My brother has been dating his girlfriend for about a year now. She's a nice girl, but at times her behavior is odd and erratic. She asks over and over again to babysit for my kids, girl and boy, 3 and 5. My wife and I have always said no. This weekend we had a barbecue and she was acting extremely strangely, only speaking in a baby voice, not talking to any of the adults and running around with the kids. My wife pulled me aside at one point, extremely upset. She has found her in our 3-year-old's room, in her playpen/ball pit area, sucking her thumb covered in our daughter's blankets, with all of her stuffed animals. My wife was completely confused as to what was going on. And when she asked my brother's girlfriend what she was doing, she responded in a baby voice that she was tired and needed nappies. My wife came immediately to get me, and we both confronted my brother to ask him what the heck was going on. My brother got extremely embarrassed. He said that his girlfriend has dissociative identity disorder, and one of her alters is a 3-year-old girl. My wife and I don't know anything about this disorder, so we didn't really say anything. Just told him to please go get her and keep her out of our kids' room. I went to get her, but within 15 minutes he still wasn't out. I went to go see what was going on, and his girlfriend was extremely upset, insisting that he calls her Evelyn, our daughter's name. That was the last straw for my wife. She told her to leave, and brother's girlfriend started straight up sobbing using her baby voice, saying she's confused and doesn't understand why everyone is being mean to her and calling her the wrong name. That night, my brother called and admitted that not only is one of her alters a 3-year-old, it's very specifically our 3-year-old. He said he can't talk to her about this because when she's not her Evelyn alter, she doesn't remember anything, and when she is her Evelyn alter, she isn't rational. My wife and I told my brother she's not allowed at family functions anymore, and she's not allowed around our kids. My wife was extremely upset and told my brother that his girlfriend was psychotic and that she wouldn't understand why he was still with someone like that. My brother is upset that my wife said those things about her, and said he understands we would be upset about her having an alter of our daughter, but she can't help it, and we should be more understanding because it's a disorder due to childhood trauma. Did my wife and I handle this the right way? We know nothing about this disorder, and doing research into it, the medical definition doesn't seem to match the way my brother's girlfriend is acting. Adding from a comment because it seems relevant, she doesn't have an official diagnosis. Apparently, it was rude of my wife and I to ask if she was getting treatment or had a diagnosis because therapy isn't available to everyone, and self-diagnosis is valid. She comes from a very affluent family and definitely has the resources to get therapy and proper diagnosis. I know DID is debated among professionals about whether it's a legit thing, but from the people I've seen who claim to have it, their alters are their own identities. It has never ever been someone else's who actually exists. This is the bit that throws me off further. She claims to have a 3-year-old as an alter? Sure, whatever. But saying that she's your daughter? This is way more concerning. Don't let her back until she's sought professional help. Well said. It was outside the scope of my post. But DID manifesting as these wildly distinct personalities, like in primal fear with an inability to remember what has happened, is very Hollywood and not often how it goes. The one example of something on the spectrum of DID I've seen was a patient who had compartmentalized like 3 different active lives within her life. They knew of them, took responsibility for it all, and couldn't exactly account for why they lived this way, other than that it felt exhausting the idea of any of those people knowing the other version of her. As if something had happened at some point in her life so traumatic, it just fractured her sense of self, to the point that she couldn't even really conceptualize herself behaving differently in different settings, without manifesting different realities where it was acceptable for her to behave those ways within. She really tested fine and behaved normally otherwise. This woman, on the other hand, is like actively causing discomfort in adults with how active and energetic she is with the kids, fixated on their child, and massively breaking down into fits of tears in situations that don't seem right. There's something robustly psychiatric going on. I just highly doubt it's DID. My money's on mania, substances for an extremely disordered personality. I would ban her from my house. You don't need a reason to decide who is allowed around your children, and this woman has given enough reasons anyway. Trying multiple times to babysit little kids while behaving like a little kid, allegedly due to a mental illness she didn't disclose? That's really messed up. If she really is suffering from dissociative identity disorder, she's not handling it appropriately. And you can tell your brother that is not because you despise her, but because you don't feel your kids being safe around her. 100%. If she actually has a 3-year-old alter and can't control when it fronts, she's objectively an unsafe guardian for her children. When people age regress, it's because they literally cannot cope with adult responsibilities with their current skill set. Now for the first update. So to start things off, my wife and I have done a lot of research into dissociative identity disorder. Right off the bat, I'll be blunt here. I do not believe in the fad DID or anything that goes along with it. I don't think people are programmed to be systems. I don't think people make fictives over characters from TV or movies. And I definitely don't think it's possible to make an alter of a specific 3-year-old girl. I think that's all attention-seeking BS. I don't know about the validity of actual DID, if it does exist, because at this point it is being faked so much, it's impossible to figure out if it's an actual disorder or not. I definitely don't think if someone did actually have DID, they would be on Reddit casually talking and making videos about meeting the alters and BS like that. And no, I don't think being in the DSM proves any validity whatsoever. I do think if you really are convinced you have DID, you probably do have some sort of disorder that you should get checked out with an actual reputable doctor. Now that's out of the way, my wife and I have heard from my brother after the party. He still thinks we owe his girlfriend an apology. We told him that he owes us an apology for not telling us about his girlfriend's erratic and psychotic behavior. I'm not using the term psychotic to be insulting. I really do think she's experiencing some sort of psychosis. My wife told him that due to his extraordinary lack of judgment in bringing her around our family and our kids, when he knew about this, we didn't really feel comfortable having him around our children without one of us directly there either. We encouraged him to get her to see an actual doctor and get checked out. We told him we'd be willing to help her look for doctors in the area if she needed support and didn't want to involve her family in this for whatever reason. But we also told him under no circumstances will she be allowed around our children again. Unless she goes through intensive therapy, realizes what she did was wrong and apologizes for it. Thanks to everyone for pushing us in the right direction as to what to do. We really appreciated all of your input and comments. To clarify, I'm not saying DID isn't real. I don't know. I think you all know what DID fad I'm talking about. I don't believe in the social media DID. The meet the alters and watch me switch BS. And yes, she does have a TikTok account where she does pretend to be my daughter. Protect your children. This is disturbing behavior, and the fact they tried to hide and then excuse her issues when they directly impact your home is such a breach of trust. I'm proud of you and your wife securing your border. If no one else has said it, cameras, cameras, cameras. Near the egress and ingress points of your home. Thank you. We already have cameras installed, but we are looking into getting 2 more near the entrance of our driveway and at the edge of our property in the backyard. And let the daycare/preschool/any childcare person know as well. She could show up and try and claim she's the nanny. Truly, OP, you can't be too safe for this type of situation, and I say this as a school nurse. You do not think it's extremely creepy that your brother sleeps with a woman who pretends to be your 3-year-old daughter? Maybe you need to keep them both away from your kids. Please warn everyone about this, especially people with small kids. It's better to hurt an adult's feelings than it is to fail to protect a child. I do think they did something in your daughter's room. You should wash and check everything. You are 100% correct. She's faking this. Either she has mental illness, other than DID, or most likely she's faking for attention because it's the latest fad. Probably spends way too much time on TikTok. Your brother is enabling this. What's worse is he is in a romantic and sexual relationship with a woman who pretends to be his 3-year-old niece. His 3-year-old niece. He sees his girlfriend pretending to be his baby niece and is okay with banging her. Even if he doesn't do it while she's faking, he's still seen her acting as this little girl and continues to be intimate with her. If he doesn't see that as a problem, that's a massive red flag in itself. Honestly, keep your kids away from her, and possibly him too while he's with her. That's what stood out to me too. A lot of these DID people use their little alters as a fetish thing. I'd keep him away from the kids forever. This is such a huge red flag for him. Remember last year, the girl who found out her parents' kink was the mom pretending to be her. Now for the final update. This is probably going to be my last update because we have since cut off all contact with her and my brother and are in contact with the police. She refused to get inpatient psychiatric help willingly, but her family put her under a 5150. Long story short, she approached our child while she was at a park with a nanny. Luckily, the nanny knows about the situation and removed our daughter immediately, contacted the police, and then contacted us. She tried to tell our nanny that we had told her to pick up our daughter and take her to her grandmother's house. She waited until it was close to the end of our nanny's shift to make it more believable. Luckily, the nanny didn't even engage with her. She just picked up our daughter and walked away, recording the entire incident to have proof. She ran after the nanny, telling our daughter, "Go ahead, Evelyn. Tell her you know me. We're going to go to Grandma's." Her family told us that there has never been any abuse in the family. She has never claimed to them that she has DID, though they have long suspected she has histrionic personality disorder. My brother has not contacted us since this happened, but my wife doesn't want contact with him anyway, and I agree with her. Again, thanks for all of your advice and well wishes. Though she's never allowed around my family again, I'm incredibly happy she's getting the help she needs, and hope her recovery and treatment go well for her, and I wish her the best. Freaking shivers. God bless that nanny. We're very thankful for her and incredibly proud that she reacted the way she did. Definitely keep a vigilant eye and never allow that woman around your daughter again, ever. Your brother's choice of women is definitely off and wouldn't trust him again either. Wait, what? Your alter cannot be another actual person. That's nuts. You don't have DID unless you are diagnosed. You have a great nanny who knows what she is doing. I think the histrionic personality disorder is spot on. It's based around needing to be constantly the center of attention and faking regression or a child alter and needing to be taken care of because you're sick sounds like an extreme but plausible presentation of that. There have been a few posts like this where people basically romanticize certain mental illnesses online, calling all mental health care and therapies as ableist. I remember one not too long ago where a girl's young sister was aggressively flirting with her BF, making both of them uncomfortable before claiming she had an alter of her sister making her do it. Mentally unwell people are unpredictable. Time for cameras, restraining orders, and a way to defend yourself, and a way for the nanny to do so as well. We have cameras and have installed more after the first incident on the perimeter of our property, as well as outside of our children's room. We're in the process of getting a restraining order, though it doesn't seem likely she'll be leaving the inpatient facility anytime soon. Don't trust that. They push people through those places quickly, and mentally ill people like that rarely stay on their meds. Last story. My friend 25 female thinks she's pregnant, but I 25 female don't believe she is, and I don't know how to handle this as a good friend. One of my best friends has been trying for a baby for years. She sadly has had 3 losses along the way, but she wants a child so badly. I feel worried for her because I'm afraid she may be convincing herself she's pregnant when she's not. A few months ago, she told me she was pregnant, but when she went for her first appointment, the doctor told her she wasn't ever actually pregnant. She ended up very upset. She felt like she had a miscarriage and was upset that the doctors weren't acknowledging that or taking her seriously. I wasn't sure about it, but I just want the best for her and was hoping that she would someday get the baby her and her husband, 28 male, have been wishing for. Now to the current situation. I'm currently pregnant with my first child. I found out just over a month ago, and the day after I told her the news, she told me that she took a test and was also pregnant. I immediately had my doubts, but I was hoping that she would get the baby she wants this time. She showed me a picture of her pregnancy test, but I didn't see a positive line at all. To me, it looked like a negative. She also told me that she just ended her period, so it didn't make sense to me that she could be pregnant yet. But I didn't want to confront her because I know it's a sensitive subject. Fast forward to yesterday. She told me she saw a doctor and they said she wasn't pregnant after all, as I suspected. But then she called me again today and said she didn't believe the doctor, so she decided to take another test and that she is pregnant. She showed me the test and once again there's no double line. It looked completely negative to me. I told her I didn't see a line and she said it just wasn't showing up because of her camera. She said she's planning on having this huge surprise for her husband, which I empathize with because I'm sure at this point he may be having a hard time with this emotionally. I feel like my friend is getting her hopes up, but after the losses she's had, I don't want to be a bad friend by telling her she's wrong or congratulate her for something I don't believe is true. I don't know how to respond when she talks about how excited she is. Any advice on how I should handle this while not overstepping and still being thoughtful of her feelings? Thanks for reading the long post if you did. Now for the advice. I wouldn't argue with her, but I think you really need to talk to her husband because she seems to be a little out of touch with reality, and there's a chance that he doesn't know about that, since she's planning surprises to tell him, so he might not know about the positive tests. Yes, and she should also talk to the husband about the pregnancy tests. I am certain that OP's friend sees the line that is supposed to get colored because it is made of a different material to the rest. It is sometimes visible on the tests even when they are not positive, but just wet from the urine seeping in. This also happens if you leave them too long and then look at the results. And if you test on the day of your missed period, it should really be quite a strong line already. It sounds like she's having some kind of mental health crisis causing this delusion. I'd encourage her to see a therapist to work through her frustration/sadness. A professional will pick up on this stuff. Else, I think you just roll with it. Hopefully her husband will direct her towards therapy. I agree with this. It sounds like she's experiencing a significant delusion and truly fully believes that those tests are positive despite the reality. She needs help, OP. I think a good first step is talking to her husband. Delusions are a difficult situation, and people react dramatically to having their delusions shattered. Same, I knew a woman from a group on social media who announced her pregnancy right after I did. Her pregnancy updates became increasingly unhinged. At 11 months later, she had still not given birth. It was obvious that she had either miscarried early on or was never pregnant in the first place. We didn't know what to do. It was awful.
I'm so happy that my ex-wife is miserable. 3 years ago, I, 48 male, found out my wife, 46 female, was having an affair. She met a guy at work and came home one day telling me she was in love with him, no longer loved me, and wanted a divorce. This was a guy she'd only known for 3 months at that time. She and I had been together since we were in our 20s, and we have 3 kids, 28 male, 26 male, and 23 female. Well, I tried to fight for my marriage and didn't want a divorce, but she simply would not stop seeing this guy. Then after one weekend where she disappeared from Friday afternoon to Sunday night, I ended up throwing her out of the house. She immediately moved in with this guy. The only excuse she ever gave me was, "I never wanted to hurt you, but there's just something about this guy, and I deserve to be happy." That was it. That was the depth of her reasoning for throwing everything we built together away. We ended up finalizing our divorce in early 2022, and although I had very hard feelings toward her, I faked it enough to get pretty favorable divorce terms from her. It seemed she was so eager to be with her dream man that she didn't have time for a long divorce. So in the end, I got to keep my pension in the house, which I had bought from my grandmother. I did have to give her half of my 401k, however. The effect on our kids was pretty devastating. All 3 of them took it very hard. My oldest son told her that if she chose this man, he'd never have a relationship with her again. And as of right now, neither of our sons has a relationship with their mother. Our daughter does talk to her from time to time, but their relationship is very strained to say the least. My daughter is a very kind person and she tries, but she usually ends her conversations with her mother even more upset than when they started. Then about 4 months after the divorce, my ex contacted me out of the blue. She told me she had made a terrible mistake and asked if she could come home. Her dream man turned out to be an alcoholic, who she says is verbally abusive and wasted all of her money. I used this opportunity to tell her exactly what I thought of her as a person, a wife, and a mother. I told her this was her life now, and to deal with it. I told her she no longer had a home in this house, and to never contact me again. Then a few things happened over the last year that have driven her to start trying to contact me again. First off, I met someone. My sister introduced me to a friend of hers who is also divorced, and she and I hit it off. We've been seeing each other since last summer, and while we agreed that neither of us wants to get married again, we are together. Once my ex heard about this, she once again tried to contact me, but I ignored her. My son also got married and didn't invite his mother. She again contacted me to try to get me to intervene on her behalf, and I told her I would talk to him, but I never did. Secretly, I feel like she deserves all the pain she's feeling when it comes to our kids. She destroyed our family without so much as an afterthought. Too bad. So sad. Now, she recently told our daughter that she finally broke it off with a dream man because she couldn't take his drinking and total lack of responsibility. He wasted her half of the 401k that I had to give her. He also totaled her car driving drunk. This from a man in his 40s. Again, she knew this guy for 3 months and torpedoed our whole family for him. On the face of it, I act like I feel sorry for her, but inside, I really delight in the fact that she's so unhappy. Call me evil or whatever, I don't care. She brought this on herself and it serves her right. I actually had to sit there one Saturday night while she got ready for a date with this guy and laughed on the phone with her friend about how awkward our living situation was. I lived in hell for over a year because of her. Wait until she finds out our son and his wife are going to have a baby later this year. Maybe if she had been able to keep her legs closed, she'd get to meet her grandchild. Enjoy your crappy one-bedroom apartment and your broken-down used car. Me and my new partner will think of you when we're on vacation in Hawaii this summer. Hawaii was the trip my ex and I always planned to take once our daughter finished college. Maybe I'll send her pictures. Now for the top comments. Unless you've been there, it is impossible to understand the mind screw that is an exit affair. Seeing the natural consequences come to fruition must be something. I hope Hawaii is amazing. And yes, it's a totally destabilizing to literally have the person you've been with since you're 20 come home from work one day and tell you they've fallen in love with someone they've only known for a few months and they want a divorce. I'm sorry if this happened to you. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. I mean, Opie tried to make it work and she was in love with some douche. The guy knew she was married and was cool with it? Nah, that's a great AA hat. She got what was coming to her. Best revenge is living well. My mom always said this. I didn't believe her until I was older. It truly is the best revenge. I always say beware the vengeance of a patient person. Life catches up to a-holes, and it's fun to watch when it does. Post the heck out of those vacation pictures. Try and get local paper to cover your trip. I legit live in a town small enough that this could definitely happen. I've observed this from another perspective, the leaving woman being, well, I wouldn't call a friend, but someone who hung out in the same crowd as I did. And they just kind of followed me around even though we're not let's meet up and do fun stuff friends. Anyway, she had a stable but, according to her, boring husband. And after almost a decade of marriage, she just wanted a little adventure. The rest follows the pattern of the story. Find an exciting man who not surprisingly had a reason why he was on the market in his 40s, divorce, alienate the family, go back to trying to relive their 20s in bars and so forth. Then come to a realization that it's a pretty empty life and that the new fun guy was like those friends who were only fun to drink with. Then get super upset that her ex-husband and the rest of the family had moved on and she was no longer invited. The kicker was that she always sold herself as the victim in all this, saying she just had one tiny mistake and everyone else blew it out of proportions. Naturally, she just wanted validation and pretty much unfriended everyone on Facebook who disagreed with her being the blameless victim. Thus, so ended my connection with her as well. Sounds like you knew my ex-wife. Only difference was it was a woman she left for, but everything else in the story fits perfectly. Next story. My 41 male wife, 40 female cheated on me with my best friend, 42 male. So, I'm now in the aftermath of the situation as she has moved out and divorce papers have been filed, but I still wake up feeling angry and betrayed every day. My wife and I had both come from previous divorces. She had cheated on her first husband. Red flag, I know. And we were a couple and lived together for nearly 8 years without being married, as neither of us really wanted to go down that road again. I got a career position with my job, however, and told her it would be smart to get married for insurance and tax purposes. She didn't think that was a great reason, but then she proposed to me a few months later. This only lasted 5 or less months, before I eventually discovered that she had started reaching out to people, sending pictures and such. The discovery process was slow. I learned that she had fooled around with a female friend. Later learned she tried to sleep with a husband too. Yet I knew that there was a man in another state that she regularly sent pictures and lewd messages to. And then I found her journal. In her journal, I saw that in October of last year, she finally did it. For 3 days straight while I was out of town for training. I confronted her and she wouldn't tell me who. I guessed the man in another state and she said yes, it was him. I also found out that on my birthday in December, she supposedly was going to a coworker's birthday party, but I noticed from text logs that she had contacted my best friend at midnight several times. It took a lot of snooping to discover everything. We had scheduled counseling. She claimed to be serious about working on it, but I discovered her Discord chats. She was cheating on me with my best friend. Regularly. On my birthday, I took said friend to a professional football game for his birthday, the day after Christmas, all the time. It continued even after we had scheduled counseling, after my friend knew we were trying to work on it. There's so many more details, but she agreed to a divorce and has since moved out. I have to pay her thousands of dollars to get her off the deed to the house, so I guess it's a lose-lose for me, but I'm trying to move forward. I guess I'm posting this here because even though I scheduled counseling in December, it doesn't start until next month. 3 total families affected minimum, all with children. I'm not sure if there's more, and I fear I will lose my relationship with my stepdaughter because of all this. I just want the hate out of my heart at this point. But for right now, if either of you are reading this, screw you, and you deserve each other. Edit. Yes, I know. Marrying a prior cheater was stupid. Believe me when I tell you that I loved her up to and even after the point that I had discovered she cheated. She led me to believe that I was her world for 8 years, prior to getting married, and I was foolish enough to believe it. Only in the end did I realize how easily she could lie to me. Work out. Get a hobby. Ditch the friend. Best revenge is living a better life. Very much this. But logic often evades us in times of great emotional distress, and this is a double betrayal. The hate will take time and effort to dissipate. My ex is in her late 40s and living with her parents. I am 3 years older than her and I'm retiring in 3 years. My mama cheated on my dad 25 years ago, has been penniless since, and she finally lost her trailer because she preferred to sit on her butt all day for decades. Now she lives with me and I freaking hate it, especially since me and my fiancé worked our butts off to afford to rent a nice townhouse in BC, and she takes up a third of it. I have been in your situation and it is tough. You have some work ahead of you, else you'll never escape. It is that dire. This situation will consume you and destroy your relationship with your fiancé if you let it. You must deal with your mother and keep your fiancé out of it as much as possible. There is a reason we don't have as many father-in-law jokes. You must set goals and boundaries. Some of them must not depend on your mother at all. If you can't stand up to her, then you need to move to a new small place where she can't follow. Be prepared to make sacrifices here, else you're stuck with her. Lie to her and tell her the tiny new place is all you can afford. Rents are going up like crazy, and you can't house her. The evil landlord only allows 2 adults, etc. Don't let her guilt you. You are the next easiest option. If she can't live off you, she will find someone else. I got my mother to move out by mandating that she go to a psychiatrist, for which I would pay as a condition for her to continue living with me. She finally moved out. She was diagnosed as bipolar after 20 years of using my sister and me financially and emotionally. I know why our other 3 siblings went no contact with her. As narcissistic as this sounds, when my ex-boyfriend cheated on me with my ex-best friend, I just try to keep reminding myself that their actions are proof that I am better than them. My morals are at a higher standard. I treat people I care about better than them. I am honest and would never hurt others the same way they did me. Suffice to say, they are truly, truly beneath you. Almost everyone who cheats has something wrong with them. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they're mentally unwell. Maybe they're bad at managing their romantic relationships. But regardless, cheating is not the actions of a well-adjusted, emotionally mature adult. You're better than them. Remember that. Last story. My ex-wife changed to a different person when we moved to her hometown. We were divorced 12 months later. My ex-wife, 36 female, and I, 36 male, met when we were 25. We were plucky, ambitious people, trying to be better versions of ourselves. We each were flawed, but we help each other become stronger, and each patch the other's weakness. 10 years later, we moved to her hometown. We had visited before. I get along okay with her family members. The move was supposed to be temporary and short, before moving to another country. But now we were part of the environment she grew up in. I felt suddenly she became a different person. As the youngest in a big family, she basically stopped making any decisions, and instead pushing for what her older siblings recommended. Slowly, it was like she felt like she didn't need to lift a finger to get anything anymore. There's always a family member to help out. But when we were alone, it became for me to cook, drive her around, take out the trash, etc. Because in my family, we do things for each other. I shouldn't even need to ask you. Suddenly, it was important that we show up to parties with her high school friends. These are people I hardly knew, but it's expected that we attend. It would be embarrassing if we don't. They'll be hurt. When we met, we were going to help each other be better people so that we can then help other people. I helped her gain skills. She helped me gain confidence and assertiveness. And then suddenly, what's important became the opposite. It was about what other people think. It was about talking and showing rather than doing. And my needs became secondary. This became evident when she made the decision that she now wanted to live in this town permanently. Maybe it had always been like this, but I swear that being back in the place she grew up, with all the old relationship patterns, behavior, and mindset, was too much of a change for me to see. I felt like someone I loved, with all her precious values and goals that I admired, was being usurped and slowly being erased. In the early days of living there, I said out loud jokingly, "It's like you are regressing to a younger version of you." 1 year later, it wasn't so funny to me anymore, but no one seemed to see it. Perhaps her family and friends only ever saw this version of her, or perhaps I was wrong in what I thought I saw all these years. I still like to think, though, that it was because of the place, that it changed her into the patterns of her younger self. And one day, if she ever moves away, the woman I knew and admire will emerge again. And then the reason for me leaving will be validated for everyone, for her, and for myself. Edit. I just want to add this detail so that I can let it go as well. I mentioned that throughout our relationship, she had helped me with my assertiveness. One of the things that made me lose hope was when she said, "I know that you're learning to set your boundaries, but when it comes to my family, this is not the time." I've always admired both of her parents, especially her dad, a kind, hardworking, generous man. Since moving, I saw up close a subtle dynamic in which he was doing all the heavy lifting for his wife, and children as well. I saw that his wife was taking him for granted. My husband will do it, etc. My ex-wife saw this and criticized her mom for it, but I could feel the behavior creeping into her, and hence our relationship. Another thing that made me lose hope was when we had her family over for dinner, and she was like, "Cook the food, serve the food, where are the cutleries? What did you get everyone for dessert?" It was the way she treated me in front of everyone. That was one of the last days. Some people, when surrounded by their family, can revert back to that childlike state of mind depending on their home life growing up, especially if they're being enabled. While it would be upsetting for you to have to bear it, I think you've done the right thing for yourself. You're only 36 from your post, and you've still got a lot of life left in you. If my uncle, who's around the same age as you, and has absolutely no social media whatsoever, can get a date, then so can you, if that's what you're wanting. Just don't ever feel guilty for choosing yourself. Oof, this is me when I'm with my family. I revert back to my teen years when my mom did everything. Mind you, I'm a stay-at-home mom that literally does everything for the house. I don't know. My mom enjoys it though, so I let her. It's also nice for me to have someone take care of me for a change in a maternal way. It makes me feel good. It sounds like she was babied her whole life as the youngest child, moved out and was forced to become independent. And now that she's back in that environment, she's reverted back to that mindset as her default. She believes she deserves to be babied and catered to. Otherwise, the whole family does things for each other would apply to both of you, not just you becoming the de facto adult of the situation, while she doesn't do her part to cook or clean. Not sure if it's something she's fully aware of, but if you've tried to talk to her about it and nothing has changed, I think you are well within your rights to divorce, as the qualities you valued in her are no longer present.